Hi, I'm Daryl. A lot of people I speak to tell me they have trouble putting edge banding on. Well, I thought I'd just go through with a demo with the sorts of things that I do, and if there's something in there that you find helpful, then go for it. The first thing that you need to do is to understand how your heat gun works with the tape that you're using. You've got to get the glue just starting to bubble, and that's the clue. Once you get it at that level, you know it's ready to stick on. If you go too much further than that, then it starts to burn. If you don't go that far, then it doesn't stick. So getting it to bubble is the clue. The best thing to do to get yourself knowing what happens there is to just take a small test piece, just put your heat gun on the front of it, watch the back of it, and I find it easiest to count. I usually find by the time I've counted up to 4 or 5, that's when the bubbles start to appear. Once you've got that in play, you've got to get the edge smooth. So just run over it real quick with a sanding block. I tend to use something around about the 100 grit, but just as long as you get that top smooth and get rid of all of the dust off there. If you see any particles, just run your fingers over, and if it's anything that stands out, just get rid of it. If you don't get it out then, when you put the edge tape on, it's just going to stick up like a politician out on a campaign trail, and you just see it forever. If that does happen, there are ways to bash it into submission, but obviously it's easier to avoid the problem rather than have it to start with. Once you've got the top sanded, the next thing is to actually lay the tape on top of the board itself. Now you notice I've got the board clamped at a good working height. The most important piece of equipment here is one of those fold-back clips you get at the newsagents. This is just about a 25mm clip, and I use that at the far end to just hold it in place. Line the tape up so that it's nice and square, and then put that clip down at that end. Once I've got that laid out evenly, the next stage to do, get your first edge down. And that's pretty much what we did before in the test. Just hold the tape up, heat it till you see it bubbling, and then push it down on the board itself. You notice that I'm running my fingers along the cool end, just keeping it even on the table, and using what you can't see is I'm using the back of my fingernail to push it down hard because it's hot and you don't want to be running your finger over. So put your fingernail on there to keep it hot, and then just get a rag and push it down hard. You want to make a firm contact in there and just keep it pushed in real hard. Once that's in, the next trick is to lift up the clip a little bit and put a loop in the tape. It doesn't have to be much, just 2-3mm or 1/8 of an inch if you're dealing with your imperial measurements, but you keep it off the board. And once you've got that in there, you just run the heat gun around that area. You can see it here that you just stay behind the loop, and once it's hot enough, it will bend down and go onto the board itself. You don't need to know how hot it is, it will tell you itself. That's one of the big reasons I use that clip. It just lays itself down nice and neat, you know exactly where to go. I'm pushing on the rag there, but I'm always pushing back towards the glued end. I'm not pushing towards the heat gun, I'm actually pushing away from the heat gun so that it comes through there. Get to the right hand end, you've got to take the clip off. So just pull that off and just gradually work the way from there towards the end of the tape. Just remembering how long it takes, count of 4 or 5, whatever it is for your situation, and run the rag over the top, pushing it in firmly all of the time. The next step is to set the glue. Take the blade that I've been telling you about and run that over the top. Put a lot of pressure on there. That both pushes it down and sets the glue and takes the heat out at the same time. To make sure that the glue has set properly, the tape is down properly, just run your fingers on the edge with some gentle upward pressure, and if you feel it starting to lift, you know that's somewhere that you've got to come back and just redo it a little bit. You can come on the top with low heat, or maybe you can come from the side and just on the high heat and push it down from that, but set it with the blade once you put a bit more heat on there, but not too much. The last stage is simply to trim the excess off and smooth it. Just take the blade, run it along the edge so that you take all the little bits that are just overlapping, run them off. Once you've done that, get the heat gun back out again, put it on the high setting and just wave it over the edge, coming from the side, just enough to remind it to be hot. Once you've done that, then get some finer sandpaper or some worn out sandpaper and just run over the edge. You're trying to take the rough edges off, and once you've done that, run it over with your fingers as well. And the reason for heating it up when you do this is so that any dust that you create, you can rub it back into the glue, and that tends to make it a bit smoother, and if there's any rough edges in there, it will tend to fill those gaps up as well. Well, that's it. I think if you look for the bubbles and you use that loop to let it know when it's ready to lay down, you got a pretty good chance of getting a good clean edge every time.